Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for taking the time out of your evening to listen to my speech. This evening I will be speaking about police reform and ways to curb police injustice. The great Martin Luther King famously quoted, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere." What if your innocent family member got shot and killed in cold blood? They did nothing to provoke the murderer, and the murderer gets off scot-free, with no ramifications for their kill. How would you feel? I'm sure you'd be devastated and outraged at all at the same time. Well, this type of injustice occurs at least twice a week. These heinous crimes are committed by the very people that swore to protect and serve us. A study by the Washington Post concluded that a police officer kills at least 1,000 citizens a year. Of those people killed, approximately 90 of the victims were unarmed. The number of unarmed people killed in the United States outweighs the total number of people killed in England and Wales for the last 7 years by police officers. Of the officers that committed these unarmed murders, almost all received no court convictions. Immediate action needs to be taken to rectify and prevent further injustices from being committed by police officers. If officers had to face harsh repercussions for murder like average citizens do, I'm sure we would see a decline in the amount of unarmed murders. I'm going to provide you with some insight regarding the lack of accountability of police officers. In addition, I'm going to provide possible solutions that will help make citizens feel safer when confronted by police officers. Just recently, a million people across the world witnessed a police officer shoot an innocent man in front of his daughter and his fiancée. On July 6, 2016, school employee and local community activist Philando Castile was shot and killed by an officer in suburban St. Paul, Minneapolis. Mr. Castile was murdered during a routine traffic stop for a broken taillight. As proper procedure dictates, Mr. Castile informed the officer of his licensed firearm in the vehicle. While reaching for his driver's license, as directed by the officer, Officer Geronimo Yanez shot Castile multiple times in the chest, killing him. His fiancée immediately started to stream the incident live for the world to see. She was then handcuffed and placed in a police car along with her young daughter. To see the way the officer murdered the victim, as well as the horrible treatment of the grieving fiancé and his daughter, was disgusting. The case is under investigation to determine that the charges should be brought up against the officer for what was obviously an unprovoked murder. As seems to be the norm now, the officers involved in the Castile case have been put on administrative leave with pay. In many of the cases where officers have killed an unarmed man suspiciously, the only repercussions they face was administrative leave with pay. It would appear that the narrative is, if you're a cop and you kill someone, you get to go on a paid vacation. You might receive some harsh criticism, but hey, that'll go away eventually and you can live your life normally, even though you destroyed somebody else's life. The Freddie Gray case is another recent example of police officers getting away with murder. Mr. Gray, a 25-year-old black man, had been arrested by police officers for running. He died a week later after being found unresponsive and not breathing after he rode unsecured in a police van. In this case, 6 officers were charged with crimes including manslaughter and murder. All of the officers were found not guilty and the cases were dropped. This all occurred after reports of lack of cooperation by the Baltimore Police Department, as well as attempted sabotage. As you can see, officers are not being policed. They are getting away with murder. The viewpoint that cops are getting away with murder is not only held by citizens, but lawyers and prosecutors alike. In Freddie Gray's case, the prosecutors were very vocal about the police department's involvement in the case. Law professor at the University of Baltimore, David Jarrow, stated that it is extraordinarily unusual for prosecutors to publicly criticize the police. There is something problematic when police officers are asked to investigate themselves and when local prosecutors are involved in these highly publicized, high-profile prosecutions. The general consensus is that cops are here to protect and serve the people. It is believed that when a cop kills someone, that the person is a criminal, that the individual provoked the officer, and the officer's only course of action was to shoot or kill the suspect. However, in many of the cases of an unarmed officer shooting, The victim were not career criminals, nor did they do anything to lead the officer to believe that their life was in danger. Being illegally profiled and harassed is another growing concern faced by citizens, especially black males. Reports have shown that most of the incidents where an unarmed victim was murdered by an officer, the victim was originally interrogated by the cop for a minor violation. Usually after further investigation, it turns out the victims were not actually guilty of the infractions initially being investigated for. Police behavior needs to be analyzed and scrutinized more intensely. There needs to be another government entity separate from the police department. The group should be composed of local citizens, lawyers, and civil activists that are tasked with investigating police officers when involved with cases of police misconduct. The group will have unhindered and complete access to police information. This will ensure that cases investigated against police officers will not be hindered by corrupt police officers trying to protect other officers from prosecution. The group will ensure that police officers will be held accountable for their actions and face jail time. In order to make this dream a reality, we as people need to start putting pressure on the government, especially government officials in Senate and local positions. We need to make protections that are agreed upon by the people and forced to be made law. Citizens should also do their research on what rights they can exercise when dealing with an officer. We the people need to be informed in order to prevent our civil rights from being trampled upon. The more you know, the less they can get away with. Finally, we need to come together in communities and look out for one another. If we believe we are witnesses of possible injustice being committed, we should stay in witness and make available for the public to view, if at all possible. The more witnesses and evidence we have exposing police corruption, the better our chances are to achieve victory. Be an individual of action. Don't wait for justice to be given to you. Make them give you justice. Justice and equality are two things that do not happen overnight. It takes great sacrifice and dedication to overcome the adversity faced by powerful groups that are unjust. History has shown us that America was built on the idea that everyone should have civil rights and treated fairly and equally. Today's law enforcement groups are no longer subscribing to those ideals. They are brutalizing and murdering innocent people at alarming rates. We need not to wait for the cops to resolve these issues internally. We cannot depend on them to weed out the bad cops that are making all cops look bad. We need to heed to the call to fight for our civil rights that are being trampled upon. If you can continue to be complacent with injustice affecting others around the country, the injustice faced by someone else will eventually be the ones that are faced by you and your family. Thank you for your time.